Good morning. My name is Maja Steczkowska, and I would like to welcome, on behalf of the Polish Cultural Institute, New York, George Zamka, who is a pilot, a Marine, and a former NASA astronaut. I think I got almost everything correctly. If there is something else, just, tell me.
I think you got it.
Okay, so the first thing I wanted to ask you about, and I think it's probably happens quite often, is have you always dreamt about becoming an astronaut, or whether it was something that came upon later after being a pilot, basically? Can you tell us more?
It was, I'd say, a childhood dream that as I matured and had different experiences in life, it was, I won't say it was suppressed, but it was kind of moved around and competed with other things that I wanted to do. When I lived in New York, there were three things I wanted to be as a kid. One was a baseball player. The New York Mets were doing very well at this time, around 1969. I wanted to be a fireman. I saw them whenever they responded to fires in the neighborhood that I was at, and they were always very impressive people to me, and very calm, collected, and then were helping people. So I like that. And then the other one was astronauts. And to me, they were similar to the firemen. At the time, the Apollo program was going strong. Again, 1969 was a pretty important year for that. And they just always seemed to be very dedicated, strong people that knew how to solve problems. So I wanted to be one of those three. And then later on, I went I became interested in serving in the military, and I went to the Naval Academy. From there, I joined the Marine Corps, and then I met some test pilots that were there. And the test pilots encouraged me to apply to go to test pilot school. And while I was at test pilot school, someone said, "Hey, did you apply to NASA to be an astronaut yet?" And I didn't know that I could do that. And it was kind of a reawakening of that dream. It's like, yeah, my gosh. And so I didn't think my chances were very good, but that's how I got reacquainted with the possibility of being an astronaut.
Oh, I get it. So it was a long way to fulfill your childhood dream.
It was, but I think the important part of it is having that as a dream open these other doors for me, being interested in the astronauts and finding out where they were from. For example, that at the time they were all from the military. John Glenn was an example of a Marine astronaut. And so having this dream in front of me kind of wove me through these other experiences without me even being aware of it. And then eventually landed me in a place where I could try to be one of them. And fortunately that worked out.
I also wanted to ask you about, let's say, another superpower, because you have a Polish background, Polish Colombian background, if I'm correct.
Yes.
And I would like to, ask you to tell us more about it, about both of these backgrounds.
Sure. I'll start with the Polish background. My name is Zamka. From my understanding, it is a long derivative from a Czech word, and as we know, the southern part of Poland had association with the region of the Czech Republic now, and shares a border. But it means farmer, and so the family came from the northern region of Poland, near up towards Gdansk, not that far. They were farmers. They're very kind of rolling hills of farms, and they eventually settled. My ancestor that came over was the youngest of 12 children. Came over in the 1890s as the youngest of 12. There was not much of an inheritance to be expected, so he took his chances, came over to the United States, settled in Milwaukee. He had a trade. He was a carpenter, and from there he started a furniture store in Milwaukee, became a pretty successful businessman, helped start a church in Milwaukee, and started a furniture store that went until about 1970, and I have very vague memories as a little kid of running around in the store. So that's my Polish side. On my mother's side, my Colombian side, she is from Bogota, but her family is from a village a little bit to the north of that called Zipaquirá. Her father was a lawyer, and she, like my ancestor, my Polish ancestor, came to the United States just kind of to, she was the youngest of 9, and she wanted to find her way in the United States, and fortunately met my dad there in New York City, and I was born across the river in New Jersey, but spent the early part of my years in New York City, right where you're at.
Yeah. I also wanted to bring a bit of cultural context to our conversation, because recently we had Chopin's piano competition held in Warsaw, and it was won by a Canadian pianist, Bruce Liu. And you had quite a big adventure yourself with Chopin's music, as you basically took it and flew with it to space, taking it on a space shuttle. And I just want to ask you about the whole idea, where it came from. Was it your suggestion? Could you tell us more?
Sure. The idea came to me from a Polish film producer named Adam Ustanowicz. I had met him after my first flight. I had 2 flights in space. The first one was in 2007. And after 2007, I visited in Poland and was actually introduced to Adam through another Polish descended American astronaut named Scott Parazynski. And Adam, a very fascinating person. He was used to be an aeronautical engineer, decided to get into making movies. And he affiliated me with the Kosciuszko Squadron that flew in World War I, that consisted of Polish and American pilots, and also with the shared history of the search for freedom and liberty that it kind of entwines Poland and the United States. It was fascinating to me. My second flight was in 2010, which happens to be the 200th anniversary of Chopin's birth. And Adam had the suggestion of, hey, can I just fly some Chopin music in recognition of that birthday? That's very important for Poland. And I said, yeah, of course. I wanted to do something for Poland. So I took a manuscript of one of his smaller pieces, and then also took his recorded music up and played it up in the International Space Station while I was there.
Great. Thank you for that.
Sure.
I wanted to ask you, how has Chopin's music changed your perception of the mission? Because you had some comparison, you were in space before, and then you were in space with Chopin, basically. I mean, his music.
Sure. So it changed it pretty dramatically. So during the mission and preparing for the mission, everything is about the technical aspects of it. What it is that we're trying to do. How do I accomplish these things? What can go wrong? How do I prepare for those contingencies if something goes wrong, so that we were able to continue the mission or keep the vehicle safe, that kind of stuff. So it was a very unartistic approach to space. So when Adam first asked, after I brought the music back, Adam started asking me questions about how I felt, and similar to what we're discussing here. And my focus has changed. What is similar between me and Chopin? Someone who lived 200 years before me and was a composer and a pianist, and what do we have in common? And what we had in common, the shared experience, is the voyage, is the journey itself. Both Chopin and I, on that particular journey, were strangers. We were in a foreign land. We were making close contacts and bonds with people that we were with, and we were both looking at home from a distance. So when I was in space, my biggest recollection was that of feeling separated in space by distance and by speed. Essentially, I was flying at 5 miles per second. And at about 200 miles over the surface of the Earth. So Earth's reality to me was just a visual of the Earth rolling out from under me. And I knew that there were lives there, and I had friends there and family that I was thinking of. And I was not able to go see them at the time until the mission was completed. And then after the mission, I could return. So I felt that Chopin was similar in that regard, and that his mission was to see his music through. And he traveled to Paris and lived there for much of his life, and spent some time in the United Kingdom as well, trying to live and establish his music. So there were similarities there. And then also in the music itself, Chopin's music is very emotional, and it covers all kinds of aspects. You know, the nocturne that he does is kind of a dreamlike form of music, and when you're passing over the Earth, it is kind of dreamlike when you're looking down at it. And then some of his more, I guess, his romantic pieces would be the time that we did spend with friends and crew members up there, and also the reunion we had back on Earth. So there were a lot of similarities.
And if you could, do it again, is there anything now that you would like to take to space, basically? And it doesn't have to be music. Anything that comes to your mind, basically.
I think I enjoyed more taking things for people. I have things in space that I brought up with me, and they were used. They were utilitarian things. This shirt, for example, I flew that in space. But to me, what I enjoyed doing was taking things up like the Chopin music and bringing that up to space, so people can have that connection and understand, hey, this item has been in orbit for you, and it's back down here on Earth. It's traveled 6 million miles at a speed of about 25,000 feet per second, and so it's been doing some special things.
I know you said about it before a little bit, but I wanted to ask you more. Like, does anything changes in a human being once you look from at the Earth from the space perspective, basically? What are your feelings, and does your attitude change as well to life?
So there are a couple things. And I'll just mention the kind of the factual parts of that and what that does perspective wise. So in the daytime, when we're on the surface of the Earth and we look up into the sky, we just see a blue sky, and it's infinite. It seems to go in all directions, and it seems like it would go forever. In space, looking down at Earth, you don't get that at all. What you see of the atmosphere of the sky is a very thin, wispy, almost an ethereal bubbling of blue air that is just kind of looks like it's boiling off into space, and it's very thin. It looks very delicate, and so my sense of the atmosphere is this all-encompassing thing that will always be there has changed. It's an asset. It's a resource that we have to be careful about. The second thing is the night sky. When you're on the surface of the Earth and on a clear night, you're looking up into the stars, into the heavens. The stars twinkle, and there's a little bit of majesty to that, a little bit of art. It's almost like if a painter had done that intentionally to add some mystique to the sky. From space, the stars don't twinkle. They're just dots of light, and they're very, very far away. And so space, to me, in space, just looks very empty. It's just a void that goes on forever. There's nothing there except for when you look at Earth, and it's the exact opposite. It's big, it's blue, it's alive. There's all kinds of variations in the oceans and the mountains and the snow-covered peaks and the rivers with the sun reflecting off of them. Flying over Africa, you can even see the red sand of the Atlas Mountains. It's just very, very stark. But the Earth is beautiful, and it's this beautiful gem that seems to be alone in the universe. And so what that does is that gives me an appreciation for what we have, which is, living here on Earth, we have, of course, many concerns and all that, but we're alive, and we live on a beautiful, life-sustaining planet. That's very special.
And also, my other question would be about, human ego, basically. So after coming back to the Earth, are you feeling like smaller human being in terms of ego, or like your ego is somehow boosted because you've been there? I know it's a personal, it depends on a person, it's a subjective experience, but I just, I was wondering how it went with you.
I would say that there's a little ego boosting for sure when I came back, just from having been successful and achieved that. But I don't, it's a very unique circumstance to go fly in space. So that doesn't, I understand that doesn't mean it necessarily would apply. For instance, I couldn't go sit on the piano and play Chopin because I've flown in space. It would take a lot of dedication. What I've always had kind of driving me, and I think it's common, is people need a sense of purpose. People need a mission to go and to achieve in order to make life and everything you do have some kind of meaning and importance. When I came back from space and when I retired from NASA, well, what do I do now? I've done this amazing thing. What is the next thing? And I found it's not the what that's so important. It's that I continue to contribute in some meaningful way. And so that's been my adjustment, is finding ways to contribute and be helpful to other people.
And was it harder for you to somehow achieve new goals or even set new goals? It's a kind of feeling that after coming back from space, you just feel like as if you are already fulfilled, and it's hard to set up another goal that would be so grand as flying to space, basically.
That's a great question. It's not a goal that I see as being so grand. I don't try to match that. That to me was a fantastic thing to be able to do. But I have enjoyed the journey, the trials, things that have gone well, things that have not gone so well. All of them have been good, and they've kind of delivered me to this moment where I am now, and I'm not done yet. I'm still journeying and traveling, but I take great satisfaction from the ups and downs and the lessons learned. And so space was definitely a blessing for me. I'm amazingly blessed and feel privileged to have been able to have done that. It wasn't the end for me, and I have to continue to go on, and I've enjoyed doing that.
And my last question would be, is there any other place in space or in Earth that you would like to visit, to travel to? I mean, even the things that are not possible right now, but they are in your dream,
Sure, I'd say at the top of the list, if I could, it would be the moon. And I'm very excited that we have plans to do that again. The moon is a constant to us in a literal sense, not only in a figurative sense, but literally the moon rotates so that the same face of the moon is always what we are looking at. It's like if I was walking around you and always looking at you, presenting my face to you. So the moon is that familiar to us. And we've yet only explored a very, very little bit of it to this point, to have had humans on it, walking it just around the equator. But there's so much of the moon left to explore, and things to be done there. And I would love to be on the surface of the moon looking back at the Earth. That would be fantastic.
And is there any place on Earth that you would like to visit,
I've been fortunate to visit many places. I would say it would be a place that I have not gone yet. So in my service time and certainly in my NASA time, I've gone to a lot of fantastic places. I think it's probably somewhere in Africa would be interesting to me. And I love when I visit Poland. It is such a beautiful country. And when I travel to places in the United States, like Western Pennsylvania, New York, and Wisconsin, I can see those same kind of rolling glacial hills that I see in parts of Poland now, and I can see why years ago many people from Poland settled in those areas, and it's fantastic. So Poland's beautiful. I love visiting it, and I would love to go back again someday.
I'm glad to hear it, and I hope it will happen soon, despite the situation we're currently
Right.
at. So thank you very much for this lovely interview, and for talking to the Polish Cultural Institute, New York.
It's my pleasure, Maya. Thank you very much for asking.
Thank you. You're welcome.